Morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yes, sir.
Thank you all so very much for agreeing to do this. I'm really looking forward to our conversation. Let me say right at the outset that I'm here to learn because you all are the ones who are really on the front line. This situation with our ports is complicated, and we need to, be very focused on looking for solutions. We're not here to pin anybody, blame anybody, but really, because all of us, for a whole range of reasons, have a stake in getting this right. Here to learn and have as positive of a conversation as we can, so we can move forward. Honest but positive, so we move forward and get the policy right. And I'm honored to be able to work with you and on your behalf to try to do that. I apologize for the technical issues apparently we were having. It's now 9:12. I think this is scheduled to go on for 45 minutes. That's going to have to be cut short because at 10 a.m. every Tuesday morning, I'm sitting in the chair presiding over the U.S. Senate. I have to be there. All right, which means I'll need to leave here probably at about 9:50. All right. Okay. All right. I think we're recording. Are we recording now?
Yeah.
All right. So I'll start and give some opening remarks, and then I'm going to hear from the real experts here. All right. So hello, everybody, and let me start off by saying, as one of Georgia's two senators, I'm delighted and honored, really, to represent you in the United States Senate. I'm grateful for the work you do and for all that you represent. And I want to thank all of you who are on the front line in various ways for taking the time this morning to discuss the supply chain issues our state is facing as part of a national, no, indeed, very much a global problem. Georgia and the nation's economy are improving, but we're not out of the woods yet. The economic crisis brought upon us by COVID-19 is still something we are wrestling through. Worker filings for unemployment benefits declined last week to their lowest level since the coronavirus pandemic began. That's good news. The unemployment rate in Georgia is now down to 3.2%. We all know that there are other problems that have to be addressed and that these are complex issues. Some of these issues existed before the pandemic began. But this public health crisis, unlike anything we have seen in our lifetimes, has made it worse. The challenge we're here to discuss today is the supply chain crisis and its effect on Georgia businesses, workers, and families. The supply chain, to be clear, is not just the movement of finished goods, but it is also of materials and parts used within the manufacturing process. And so it affects producers and manufacturers and obviously consumers alike. Supply chain disruptions are improving, but consumer demand continues to rise. It seems that every month we hear that the Port of Savannah, where I'm from, is breaking records on the volume of cargo being moved. And we're grateful for the work that the men and the women who are working around the clock for the Georgia Ports Authority are doing. They're doing a yeoman's job, a lot of heavy lifting, figuratively and quite literally. Still, these problems are not unique to Georgia's ports or to just America. Nearly 13% of the world's cargo shipping capacity is tied up right now by delays. Ports in Europe, Asia, and the Middle East are experiencing some of the same issues we are. But that does not mean we cannot identify what is working and what is not and do everything we can to alleviate the strain. And so I've been working on supply chain issues since I got here to Washington. One of the ways we're going to get through this is by investing in infrastructure. I'm proud of the work the Senate did on the bipartisan infrastructure bill. This is good news for Georgians in every corner of the state, and especially good news for Georgia businesses and Georgia corporations. The bill is all about infrastructure and not only prioritizes fixing our roads and rebuilding bridges, it also includes major investments in our ports, our rail networks, and our airports. I'm proud to say that Georgia is very much a multimodal state, and this is a multimodal bill that I'm proud to be a part of, investing in ports, rail, and airports. It gives us the tools to support a long-lasting recovery by funding rural broadband development, directing resources to prop up manufacturing, secure our supply chain, and investing in research and development to foster the right environment for innovation. This infrastructure bill will also help us grow more high-wage jobs and will invest $100 billion in proven workforce development programs to make sure our state has a skilled and trained workforce ready to seize these opportunities. I'm excited for it to get across the finish line. Hopefully in the coming days, we need to get this bill to the president's desk and sign it into law. Congress is also working at the same time on the next economic package that is going to help families, workers, and businesses in our state continue to thrive. We've got these two bills, and we need them both. The bipartisan infrastructure bill and then the second economic package both invest in different ways in our total infrastructure, our ability to be productive and to grow out the economy and create prosperity for all of our families. This second bill will help fuel our economic recovery and set our state up for future success for generations. The Build Back Better bill is what I'm talking about. And it will create incentives to grow American supply chains and renewable energy and other critical industries. How will it do this? By delivering universal pre-K and child care to our nation. It takes care of the future workforce and enables the current workforce to actually go to work in an environment where most families work. Everybody in the house has to work. It will be easier for Americans to re-enter the workforce after starting families. And by expanding access to high-quality post-secondary education and workforce training, Georgians will be able to learn the necessary skills to be successful as our Georgia's businesses develop cutting-edge technologies. I've also worked on other legislation to address the issue. This includes legislation in August, the Industrial Finance Corporation Act, which would create new financing for small manufacturers to promote innovation and create jobs in Georgia. And then this week, I also plan on introducing yet another bill with Senator Baldwin. It is the Supply Chain Resiliency Act, which would create a new program at the Department of Commerce to monitor supply chain shortages and provide financing to expand manufacturing and logistical capacity. And so in closing, and nobody believes the preacher when he says in closing, the purpose of today's discussion is to discuss both the successes and the shortcomings of Georgia's supply chains. And each one of you brings a unique perspective and expertise on Georgia's economy, and you feel the effects of the supply chain problems. Today's talk will help inform me as I work with my colleagues in the Senate and in the administration. Remember, we're here today to find solutions, not to blame or point fingers. This is a complex set, right, of issues and problems, and there's no easy or quick fix. We understand that, but we got to do everything we can to alleviate bottlenecks at every step of the process. We're in this together, and so let's talk together about how we move forward. I've got some great folks here with me today, and I can't wait to hear from them. Would each of you, maybe beginning with Brett, introduce yourselves and tell us what you do? Your
Morning, everybody. I'm Brett Hume, Political Communications Director for the Southeastern Carpenters Regional Council, covering Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee, and both Carolinas, but I'm representing the Central Labor Council on this conversation, representing over 8,000 organized workers in Southeast Georgia.
very good. Thank you so much. Phil?
Good morning, everyone. Phil Sutton, Vice President for Kubota Manufacturing of America and Kubota Industrial Equipment in Northeast Georgia. We have about 3,100 employees, and we're proud to be a part of this conversation. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, and it was great to be with you a couple of months ago.
Appreciate you coming here.
Yes. Lisa?
Hi, Lisa Winton, and I am co-owner and CEO of Winton Machine Company. We're located in Swanee, Georgia. We build industrial machinery that helps our customers make tubular parts for their products.
Thank you so much. I don't have your name in front of me. The gentleman who looks like my bald-headed twin. I can see you can say that when you're both bald.
Well, that's the best compliment I got in today, so thank you. Thank you, Senator. I'm DeAndre Larry. I'm the group vice president with Norfolk Southern. I look after our international business. So that's primarily the international steamship boxes that move on the railroad.
Very good, thank you. And I think Jamie.
Morning, Senator. Jamie McCurry. I'm with the Georgia Ports Authority. I'm the Chief Administrative Officer here. Look forward to the conversation. Thanks for having me.
All right, I think I got everybody. All right, so let me hear directly from you, and I can hear from either or all of you or some of you on this question. From your perspective, given what you're seeing and doing, what is the number one thing that Congress and the administration can do to ease the supply chain crisis? A lot of things, but what's the number one thing we can do to ease the supply chain crisis from a policy perspective? Mara, you're in the shot. You want to be in there? I'm just realizing.
Senator, I'll go first. So I really appreciate the idea that you're working on critical investments and the supply chain resiliency, because I think that's one of our key long-term plays. And I would say the Innovation and Competition Act is critical for Congress to pursue that and pass it, because it includes supply chain resiliency, as you discussed, the counterfeit goods that we're facing from China, and the critical investments in R&D. So I'm sure Phil can speak up about this, but it's really difficult when you're building a machine and sitting here, you have a $200,000 piece of equipment and it's missing one component. And it's a component we can't get here in the US. It has to come from overseas because our entire electronics industry went to China decades ago. So we need to rebuild that with R&D. And I think that the Innovation and Competition Act would be a great start.
Thank you for that. It's something that I've been very focused on, which is why I joined with Senator Peters of Michigan to specifically address the issue of semiconductors. I was down at the Kia plant in West Point, Georgia, and it's a great plant producing a lot of cars, a very popular SUV. They shut that plant down on a couple of occasions. One time, I think, for a couple of days for want of semiconductors. So this is a supply chain issue. It's an economic issue. It's a national security issue, to be quite honest. You want to add to this, Phil?
Yes, I agree from an innovation standpoint, innovation and competition. But let me just add, I think our business, as you know, we've been onshoring more and more manufacturing our philosophy is to produce in the market. So as North America is a growing market for our products, our philosophy is to onshore as much of those products that are going to be consumed in the U.S. to be able to produce them in the U.S. So one of the things we'd like to do is we'd like to expand our supplier base in the U.S. as well, and not rely on suppliers outside of the United States. But to do that, I think we need to have some fundamental investment philosophy change in our workforce. And I feel like we have lost one or two generations of manufacturing folks in the United States. And so what used to be following your father, your grandfather in a trade, and these are noble, well-earning trades, whether they're welding or assembly or carpentry, as our friend Brett, but we need to find a way to encourage our young folks and to incentivize our young folks to be involved in these trades. And I think that the government could help in that area. And I think we've got to break the mindset of everybody needs a liberal arts degree, a 4-year liberal arts degree to be successful in the United States. We've got an awful lot of young folks out there that we can give them a W in the W column if we can teach them a trade, and we can grow our own infrastructure here, which I think, fundamentally will change. And I know this is a long-term thought, but I really think that we have to find a way that to do that as part of this whole infrastructure. We'd like for all of our suppliers to be within 400-mile radius of us. With the shortage of truck drivers, with all of the issues that we're faced with today, overall long-term strategy, I think we need to think about those. And I think there are incentives that we can do for these young folks to get into this work, into these professions that we've lost over the last 2 generations, perhaps.
And I'd like to add also, Phil, on that is with immigration, Senator, a lot of the countries have programs in which, the immigrants coming in, they have real set training programs to get them into the workforce quickly. Manufacturing being one of those sectors, and they're also allowing people to come in that have certain trades. And I would encourage Congress to take a look at some of those programs from other countries. I think Germany did a great job with when the Syrian refugees came in and being able to put them right into apprenticeship programs. And those are things done at a federal level, not at a state level.
This is good stuff. So I'm hearing the need to invest in manufacturing in the United States, that we've lost perhaps a generation or 2 of manufacturing, a culture that encourages manufacturing, investment in young people, in human capital, a human infrastructure, so that we have the next generation of workers. And I think implied in all of that is a livable wage, which you also address, that these are jobs that can create a good, strong wage for folks. And these are issues that predated the pandemic, right? But the pandemic brought these things into sharper focus as we've experienced these supply chain issues. Anybody else want to speak to this issue, to that question? What is so USICA is what I heard was that the United States Innovation and Competition Act is a step in the right direction, and that it makes sense to invest both in hard infrastructure and human infrastructure as we get the next generation of workers ready.
Senator, if I could add.
Go ahead, Jamie.
Senator, if I could add, since the labor piece has been brought up, that was one of the pieces I was going to mention to the supply shortage, more so in the long run. Phil touched on it, and so did Lisa. But the way the immigration system is set up, companies and even our case contractors have looked to the H-2B visa program, but that originates from the country of origin. There's a lot of time involved between the actual worker coming from the country of origin to the U.S. One of our concerns and challenges right now is the folks that are already here that cannot e-verify. E-verify is not the perfect system, but it's the best we have at this point in time. These folks are doing the work here, just in the shadows and under the table. And that's a huge challenge to everybody that's trying to play by the rules.
So these supply chain issues also bring into sharp focus the need for comprehensive immigration reform. Take 11 million people out of the shadows, that we have a workforce here that are not able to fully engage because the policy is not set realistically for the situation at hand. DeAndre, you were making a comment.
I was just going to say it's things like this. You said in your opening that this is a very complex issue, and making sure this is a diverse group. I applaud you for bringing a group like this together because there's many sides to it. And so, you know, whatever Congress does and government does, you know, the intent is always to do more good. And so I think pulling together a disparate and diverse group of folks to have their view is helpful. So I think with communication, more is more, and doing this helps us. So it makes us all feel more comfortable that we're heading in the right direction.
Let me ask a couple of questions. We've got folks representing industry here, and there's no question that the pandemic changed the way everyone has to do business. And so let's talk about what's working and the lessons learned. What is something that worked as your companies or your organizations have adjusted to the supply chain disruptions? And is there anything that surprised you in its effectiveness? What's worked and what's proven effective? And have there been any surprises along the way as we've had to adjust to the pandemic?
Well, since I didn't answer the last question, I guess I'll start with this one. And, you know, the thing that worked the most was the people that were able to work very hard. We've had, you know, the GPA or Georgia Ports employees, the International Longshoremen's Association labor around us, truck drivers, the railroads, the people that are available to work have really, you know, gotten together and pushed hard. And we've seen an extraordinary amount of overtime and things of that nature that, you know, on the one hand, people that want it have had the opportunity to make more money, which is great. But it can be exhausting, and it can become, you know, a quality of life concern. It can become a safety concern. And so we've been hiring. I think that really circling back to the last question and the comments there, really we just need more and more workers. GPA has hired, I think, over 400 people over the course of the last year. It has grown by over 400 people in the last year, which is extraordinary. Those employees are coming from somewhere else, and they've got to be, those jobs that they're coming from need to be backfilled. And really, you know, Phil, as a graduate of a four-year liberal arts college, I don't disagree with your comments. We need more people being trained in trade crafts. There's honestly the wages that are out there, the compensation packages, incentives for signing on. There's some extraordinary opportunities for people to go to work right now, and a lot of those jobs are being filled, but partly because of the increased onshoring that Phil referenced, largely because there has been such an extraordinary consumption of consumer goods over the past year and a half that the many retailers have rushed to replace, that there's just so much product in the supply chain, and, you know, maybe less total workers. I'm not really sure what the numbers bear out that are handling that cargo. And that's really what the disruption has been. It's not been that the infrastructure specifically at the port least here in Savannah, is not able to handle the volumes. It's that the cargo is staying here longer because it can't flow as fast as it normally would. And a lot of it has to do with labor. A lot of it has to do with the availability of equipment, all things that people want to correct and are doing their best to correct. It's just just again, an extraordinary time. So I think in terms of what's working, the people are working, people have been really working hard, and we're exceedingly grateful to our employees and the people that are working around us. Again, our partners, really everybody on the phone is a partner in the supply chain that we experience and that we work with. And to me, that's the main thing that's been working.
Thank you so much.
If I may, I'd like to just take an opportunity to say that we have been really blessed, I think, as a state and as a company for sure, by the hard work of the folks in the railroad and the ports, the longshoremen. They have really, as you said, carried the heavy load, absolutely, in getting products to us in the most difficult times. We have been very, very happy with the service that we've gotten out of the ports and of the railroad and the trucking industries. But it's beyond their abilities to, a lot of the supply chain issues are outside of their scope of area of responsibility. So whether it's China manipulating the availability of container space on ships, idling ships intentionally to increase the cost of transportation, those kind of things have been probably more confounding to us than the people who have worked hard here. I can't say enough about, like I said, the transportation piece of it, from the ports to the rail to the trucking. Through the worst part of the pandemic, they came to work. Our folks came to work because of them. We were able to put food on people's table because of the hard work of all the people that endured the difficulties during the pandemic. If I may just say, and I've said this to you before, when you visited, I wish there was a way for the government to subsidize people to go to work, not to stay home. Whether it's to get caught up on their bills, whether it's to pay childcare, because a lot of companies can't afford to do that, and they've struggled with getting employees, and they've struggled with getting keeping people and keeping benefits and those kind of things because of the competition for wages and that kind of thing. So if we can subsidize those hardworking folks, and especially the small businesses, we're a big business, but we rely on a lot of small businesses to keep us going in this supply chain. And a lot of those small businesses just can't afford to keep up with the wages and the payroll and the benefits that keep them working. So it's a big, a big circle issue that I think that if the government could find a way to subsidize rather than to stay home to go to work, especially for those small businesses that can't afford it.
Thanks, Phil. That's me.
I think, let me respond to that. I appreciate it. And Phil and I have talked about this. I agree. I think it's helpful and important for us to provide a kind of floor that enables people to work and to stay engaged. It's the reason why I fought so hard to expand Medicaid in our state. Georgia is one of only 12 states that continues to refuse to expand Medicaid, and that is an issue with our state legislature. The support is there. It's a federal benefit made available, but some folks are playing politics with it. And so when you talk about the 646,000 Georgians who are in the Medicaid gap, you're actually talking about the working poor. And so these are folks who are not poor enough to get conventional Medicaid, right? That's a certain That's a particular kind of subsidy. But they can't afford private health insurance either. And their employer, meaning their employer, can't really provide it. They're in the gap. And so if we provided those folks a floor so that they're not worried about basic healthcare concerns, getting an annual physical, staying healthy, then we literally strengthen the workforce. It's also the reason why I support pre-K and early childhood development, because we can't pretend that we live in the workforce that we did 50 years ago, where one person stayed home and the other one went to work. That hasn't been our reality for a long time. And I would argue that for many of us, depending on what community you come from, that's almost never been our reality. You talk to folks in Black and brown communities and other struggling communities, folks have always had to go to work. But we know that it's important to invest in young people, to invest in our small children. It helps with their brain development, and it enables their parents to go to work. And so I hope we can get these bills across the finish line and ready the American workforce, even on the other side of the pandemic. Lisa, you were saying something.
Yeah, so I know that we're on a time constraint, and I would be really remiss if I didn't say this. So one of the, manufacturing was just in time. We were lean after the recession. We had lots of inventory on our shelves. We kind of learned from that, and the whole manufacturing sector went to just in time. That's not working anymore because of the supply chain. So I know that when I can get goods, I'm having to really stock my shelves with inventory, whatever I can. So as a small manufacturer, that's taking up a large part of my cash flow, having to just have all these goods sitting on the shelves, but with no other choice. I'm lucky to have a 9.8% insurance increase. Every time you get less than a double digit, you're told that you're lucky. So from a small manufacturing perspective, I'm very lucky that I've had a good workforce, but I can tell you that a lot of them are resentful. They're resentful for all the subsidies and the people that didn't come to work. And they hold that that's a big discussion amongst a lot of workers in manufacturing. And what's going to hold us back, and what's holding us back right now from getting orders, is our customers are waiting on tax. They're waiting to see what the tax reform looks like, and they're waiting on the supply chain disruption. So that's going to have a big impact on us for first and second quarter of next year. Uncertainty in manufacturing is,
Right.
I can't say enough about that.
Right.
The whole political cycle, everything you guys do in Congress has a huge, huge impact on the decisions that are made by manufacturers.
Yeah. The last thing you need in business is uncertainty. And,
Yeah.
I get it. Listen, I'm going to have to wrap up in just a moment. Let me ask you this. What is something your companies or organizations, what is something your companies or your organization did to adjust us to the supply chain crisis that you expected to work, but the results were disappointing? And what lessons did you learn in the process?
We spent several $100 million adding capacity, and it wasn't. We need more. That's not really an answer.
So you were moving in the right direction, but you didn't move far enough.
Well, it's just, there's only so much land and so much money, but we're developing as fast as we can, and it takes time. Honestly, when it comes to capital expansion, the things that if you could flip a switch and have them ready to right now, that'd be great. But most of them take 9 to 18 months to deliver, and we're doing those things for sure, and we'll be able to better absorb future surges of cargo imports and exports. But there's just a finite amount of ability to flex, and we're very fortunate we have any ability at all. A lot of places simply can't.
Jamie, we keep hearing about backups in the port of Long Beach and LA, of supply chain issues on the West Coast. What do you think we're getting right in the Georgia ports that might be replicated in other places?
Sure. Well, I think it would be inappropriate for me to say that we're doing it all right and they're not, because they're certainly working their tails off and doing the best they can on the West Coast, just like we are over here. But really, to my last point, we have had the blessing of available land, both at and on terminal, as well as near the port for continued economic growth, economic development growth. And we've been able to expand our port facilities and the connecting infrastructure. The local communities, the state of Georgia, and the federal government have all invested in those infrastructure components that have allowed us to continue to grow and handle more goods, I won't say at a more efficient rate than some other places, put it like that. But right now, because of all the dynamics that are at play, there may be 80 plus container ships at anchor on the West Coast in Southern California right now. We have 25, and that's not normal. We normally would only have 1 or 2, and that's simply waiting on traffic flow, not waiting on actual delays. But right now there have been extra ships coming off schedule. There have been special chartered ships, and just an extraordinary amount of volume that has slowed down the pace in a way that everybody is doing the best they can. I don't think we can ever stop trying to do better, and we won't. But again, I guess in the simplest answer is that we've been able to continue to invest in capacity in a unique way here, and we hope to be able to continue to do that on an ongoing basis.
Thank you so much. That's helpful. DeAndre, you were saying something, or anybody else want a closing comment as we wrap up?
Well, just a closing comment, just to brag on the Georgia port a little bit more than Jamie would. He's too humble to do that. But something that the Port of LA and Long Beach just introduced was a short haul land bridge rail service to Utah. And GPA had the foresight to establish a land bridge to Atlanta that moves, hundreds of thousands of units via rail. There's obviously a supply chain benefit from a cost standpoint. There's a green benefit. Those are trucks that aren't on the road. And I think by doing that, that allowed another outlet that LA, Long Beach, and other ports don't have, that land bridge that is an advantage to us. And as shippers look for optionality, as steamship lines and others look for optionality, that's a tout that GPA can say about themselves that others can't. So I'd applaud them for that. And I think that's something that we did right.
Thank you, DeAndre.
One thing I would like to just conclude with is this supply chain issue. I've got so many days to get stuff off that port. We're, as Lisa mentioned, just in time doesn't work right now. I'm paying $500,000 a month in warehouse rental for 1 million square feet of warehouse per month. I'd much rather give that money to our employees than to spend it for a warehouse and for 3 or 4 times the inventory that I'm having to carry because of just managing through the supply chain. So these funds are being diverted from areas that, like I said, we'd much rather put this investment in our employees than in warehouse space.
Got it. Brett?
Yeah, Senator, I just wanted to mention to your question, and I can't speak to the West Coast relationships, but in terms of the GPA and really the carpenters for that matter, about 10 years ago, we figured out it's all about productivity. So our contractors relationship, we went away from the adversarial historical relationship and became partners. And that's what the ILA did with the Georgia ports. So I would suggest an eye-opening from the labor perspective that quite honestly, without Phil, without Lisa and the manufacturing base and the contract, our folks don't work. They don't do maintenance in those facilities. And at the end of the day, it's about productivity and a partnership.
Great. Well, I think that's a great note for us to close on. I want to thank each and every one of you for taking the time to share your experience as you're seeing it on the front line. I want to thank you for helping us to work together to get the policy right so that we can address these supply chain issues and help us not only to survive, but to thrive on the other side of the pandemic. Dr. King said we're tied in a single garment of destiny, caught up in an inescapable network of mutuality. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. In a sense, we're all caught up in a supply chain, and if one part of it is broken, we see the cascading effect. But if we fix a part of it, it helps all of us. And so I think we can apply that lesson in a larger way to our politics and to the relationship between business and labor. I believe that it is possible, indeed necessary, to be pro-business and pro-labor. The two are not mutually exclusive. The only way we get through these things is to get through them together. So thank you. I want to see all of your companies prosper, and I want to see the Georgia economy get stronger day by day, and all of our families get stronger as a result of it. Again, thank you so much, and I look forward to engaging you as we consider what other public policy ways we can help us to move forward together. God bless all of you. Keep the faith.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Take care.